The Galactic Council chamber was a place of grandeur, its sheer size and design meant to inspire awe in those who entered. Towering crystalline pillars reflected the soft glow of holographic interfaces, while representatives of countless species sat in tiered rows, each adorned in ceremonial garb unique to their worlds. Today, all eyes were on the human delegation, a small group of figures dressed in dark, understated uniforms that seemed out of place in the sea of opulence. The humans entered with measured steps, their expressions unreadable. They were the newest addition to the council, and their presence had been met with mixed reactions since the beginning. Some species viewed them with curiosity, others with disdain, and a few with outright hostility. Humanity's rise to the stars had been rapid and, in the eyes of many, aggressive. Their expansionist tendencies and unwillingness to yield had painted them as a threat to the fragile balance of the galaxy. The council chamber buzzed with muted conversations as the humans took their seats. Across the room, a towering alien with iridescent scales and elongated limbs leaned forward, its voice amplified through the chamber systems. "Humans," it began, its tone dripping with condescension. "We have convened here to address your continued occupation of the Mirren sector. This territory is a shared resource, and your unilateral claims disrupt the harmony we have worked so hard to maintain." The leader of the human delegation, a calm, sharp-eyed figure, stood. Their voice was steady, cutting through the room's murmurs. "The Mirren sector was unclaimed when we established our colonies. Our people have worked tirelessly to make those worlds habitable, and we have respected every agreement we've signed. If harmony is your goal, then why are we the only ones being asked to compromise?" A ripple of discontent spread through the council. Another alien, with translucent skin and bioluminescent veins, spoke next. "You misunderstand. The issue is not just your presence. It's your methods. Your species has a history of conflict. Your expansion is seen as threatening." The human representative's gaze hardened. "Threatening to whom? Our colonies have never attacked unprovoked. We've defended ourselves, yes, but we've done so because we've been left with no choice. Tell me, what species here has expanded without conflict? What species has not fought for its survival? If we are to be judged, let it be by the same standards applied to everyone else." The room fell into an uneasy silence. The humans' words carried a weight that many were unwilling to acknowledge. For all their criticisms, none of the council's members could claim their own histories were free of violence or conquest. Finally, a third voice spoke, cold and dismissive. "This is not a trial of histories. This is about the present. Humanity's aggression cannot be allowed to destabilize the galaxy." The human representative clenched their fists, but maintained their composure. "Aggression," they repeated, the word laced with irony. "You accuse us of aggression while demanding we abandon our people. You demand that we surrender what we've built, what we've bled for, to appease those who contributed nothing to those worlds. Tell me, how is that harmony?" The council erupted into a cacophony of voices, some in agreement, others shouting objections. The human delegation remained silent, their faces impassive as the chaos unfolded. Eventually, the council's presiding figure, an ancient being whose features seemed to shimmer like liquid metal, raised a hand to restore order. Its voice was calm but authoritative. "Enough. Humanity, we understand your perspective, but compromise is necessary for peace. The galaxy cannot function if every species pursues its own interests without regard for others." The human leader's eyes narrowed. "Peace," they said softly, almost to themselves. Then louder, "Peace cannot exist without respect. You speak of compromise, yet every compromise demands that we lose and others gain. Is that peace? Or is it submission?" The ancient being leaned forward slightly, its form shifting like mercury. "Are you saying humanity will not cooperate?" The human's gaze swept across the chamber, taking in the expressions of disdain, indifference, and quiet curiosity. "We're saying this. If peace means abandoning our people, then it's no peace at all. If compromise means erasing what we've built, then it's not compromise, it's extortion. Humanity will not yield. With that, the human delegation rose as one and began to leave. The chamber was stunned into silence, save for a few murmurs of outrage. As the humans reached the exit, their leader paused and turned back. If you cannot value our lives, you cannot expect us to value your peace. The doors closed behind them, leaving the council to grapple with the weight of their departure. Some dismissed the humans' defiance as arrogance, while others, those who had studied humanity more closely, felt a growing unease. One such figure, seated in the shadows of the chamber, watched the departing humans with a thoughtful expression. They had seen this before, a species underestimated, pushed too far, only to reveal a strength no one had anticipated. For the first time, the Galactic Council began to wonder if they had made a mistake. The departure from the Galactic Council left a ripple of uncertainty in its wake, but humanity wasted no time lingering on the reaction. The moment the delegation returned to Earth's Central Command, the directive was clear: prepare for the worst. Across the colonies, humanity mobilized with a unity that belied its fragmented past. Fleet yards buzzed with activity, shipwrights working tirelessly to retrofit aging vessels and construct new ones. On the surface of distant frontier worlds, civilians and soldiers alike worked together to fortify defenses, erecting planetary shields and orbital platforms. Humanity had no illusions about its standing in the galaxy. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded by species that saw them as little more than an annoyance. But humanity had faced worse odds before. In underground bunkers and high-orbit stations, scientists and engineers pushed the limits of their ingenuity. The data gathered from years of trade and covert operations within the galactic markets was now being repurposed. Alien shielding technology was combined with human innovation, creating prototype defenses capable of withstanding prolonged bombardments. Weapon systems were overhauled, their power boosted to levels previously deemed unsafe. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its adaptability, and now it was on full display. On one of the Central Fleet Command stations, a grim-faced admiral stood before a projection of the contested sector. Around her, officers debated strategy, but the admiral's focus was unwavering. "They think we'll crumble," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. "They think we're too young, too fractured to stand against them. They'll soon learn that humanity does not bow to threats." Her words were not just rhetoric. Across the colonies, people were preparing in ways the Council could never have anticipated. Young volunteers flooded recruitment centers, some barely old enough to hold a weapon. Their reasons varied: patriotism, anger, fear, but they all shared the same determination. This wasn't just about territory, it was about survival. In a small, dimly lit workshop on the edge of a mining colony, a young engineer tinkered with a prototype drone. The device was small, barely larger than a human fist, but its potential was vast. Equipped with advanced AI and cloaking capabilities, the drone could infiltrate enemy lines and disable critical systems. It was one of thousands of projects being developed in secret, each one a testament to humanity's relentless drive to overcome its limitations. Not far from that workshop, a soldier stood atop a newly constructed barricade, scanning the horizon. The distant stars glimmered faintly, but to her, they were a reminder of the looming threat. She adjusted her rifle, its modified scope glinting in the low light. This was her home, and she would defend it to her last breath. Meanwhile, deep within a classified facility on Earth, a group of scientists worked on a project known only as Resolve. The specifics were shrouded in secrecy, but whispers of its purpose spread among the ranks. It was humanity's ace, a weapon or strategy that could turn the tide if diplomacy failed entirely. The lead scientist, a woman with tired eyes and a sharp mind, pushed her team to the brink. "This isn't just another experiment," she reminded them. "This is survival. Every second we waste could cost us a colony." Despite the urgency, humanity's preparations were not driven by a thirst for war. Most of those working in the factories, bunkers, and command centers hoped the Galactic Council would reconsider. They hoped the show of strength would force a renegotiation, a chance to reach an understanding without bloodshed. But hope was not a strategy, and humanity knew better than to rely on it. Reports began to filter in from the edges of human space. Alien reconnaissance ships had been spotted near the Mirren sector, their intentions unclear. In one instance, a human patrol frigate encountered an unmarked vessel attempting to scan a colony's defenses. The frigate's captain, after issuing multiple warnings, fired a warning shot that sent the alien ship retreating. The incident was logged but not broadcast. Humanity had no desire to escalate tensions, but they also wouldn't allow themselves to be provoked without response. The Council's view of humanity as primitive and unsophisticated couldn't have been further from the truth. Behind the scenes, human diplomats quietly reached out to sympathetic species within the Council, seeking alliances and understanding. Though few were willing to openly defy the Council's decisions, some provided intelligence or subtle support. It wasn't much, but it was enough to give humanity an edge in its preparations. On a frontier colony near the contested sector, a father sat at a table, penning a letter to his daughter. He knew she wouldn't read it for years, if ever, but it was important to him. In his words, he expressed the pride and love he felt for her, and his hope that she would grow up in a galaxy where humanity could thrive without fear. He placed the letter in a small box and set it aside, knowing the time would soon come when he would have to join the militia. As the days turned to weeks, humanity's resolve only grew stronger. They didn't need to match the Galactic Council in strength or numbers. They needed to show that they were willing to fight for what they believed in. Every ship constructed, every weapon refined, and every defense erected was a message. Humanity would not be bullied into submission. Back on the command station, the Admiral reviewed the latest reports. The fleet was nearly ready, and the colonies were as fortified as they could be. She knew the Council would interpret these preparations as an act of defiance, but that didn't matter. Humanity wasn't preparing for war. They were preparing for survival. In one of the final meetings before the Council was due to reconvene, the human delegation drafted a message. It was simple, direct, and encoded to ensure it reached its destination unaltered. We will not yield. Peace must be mutual, or it will mean nothing. The message was sent, and humanity waited. But they didn't wait idly. They continued to build, to plan, to hope, and to prepare for the day when their resolve would be tested. The Galactic Council's response came swiftly, and it was as many had feared. A formal condemnation of humanity's actions was broadcast across the galaxy, labeling them as reckless aggressors unwilling to cooperate for the greater good. Alongside the declaration came an ultimatum: immediate withdrawal from the Mirren sector or face collective military intervention. The message was clear, but its tone carried an undercurrent of arrogance. The Council believed humanity would falter under the weight of such a threat, that the specter of galactic war would force them to capitulate. But instead of cowering, humanity stood firm. The ultimatum was met with silence, a calculated refusal to validate the Council's authority over their sovereignty. In the heart of the Mirren sector, the colonies braced themselves for the inevitable. Early warning systems were activated, and fleets stationed nearby began coordinated patrols. Civilians were evacuated from vulnerable outposts, though many refused to leave their homes. "This is our land," a colonist said when asked why he stayed. "We built it with our hands, and we'll defend it with them too." The first skirmish came without warning. A fleet of Council-line ships crossed into the sector, their intent unmistakable. They fired warning shots near a human mining outpost, demanding immediate surrender. The response was swift and decisive. A trio of human corvettes, smaller and older than the alien ships, emerged from the asteroid field nearby. Using the terrain to their advantage, they executed a daring ambush, disabling the enemy's flagship before retreating to a safer position. It wasn't a decisive victory, but it was a statement. Humanity was willing and able to fight, even when outmatched. The Council fleet withdrew, its commanders shaken by the unexpected ferocity of the human response. News of the skirmish spread quickly, and opinions across the galaxy began to shift. On distant worlds, whispers of admiration for humanity's defiance grew louder. Many species, long resentful of the Council's heavy-handed tactics, saw humanity as a symbol of resistance. The idea of a young, determined race standing against the galactic powers inspired hope in those who had long since resigned themselves to the Council's dominance. But within humanity's ranks, there was no time for celebration. The Council's fleets were regrouping, their forces growing stronger with each passing day. Intelligence reports indicated that several powerful species had pledged their support, offering advanced ships and resources to crush the human rebellion before it could gain momentum. In response, humanity doubled down on its preparations. Mobile strike teams were formed, their mission to disrupt enemy supply lines and delay their advance. On the surface of the contested colonies, defensive emplacements were reinforced, and ground troops underwent intensive training. Amid the chaos, humanity's leaders convened in a secure facility, their discussions shrouded in secrecy. The topic was the Resolve Project, now nearing completion. The lead scientist presented her findings, her voice steady despite the weight of her words. "It's untested," she admitted, "but if it works, it could change everything." The leaders exchanged grim looks. They knew the risks involved, but the stakes left them no choice. "We'll keep it as a last resort," one of them decided. "But if it comes to that, we won't hesitate." Meanwhile, on a distant observation post orbiting a gas giant, a human reconnaissance team monitored the movement of Council forces. Their data provided crucial insights into the enemy's strategies, but it also revealed the sheer scale of the opposition. For every human ship, there were 5 Council vessels, each one more advanced than the last. The odds were staggering, but the team reported their findings without hesitation. Back on Earth, a broadcast was transmitted to the colonies and fleets. It was the voice of the human delegation leader, calm but resolute. "We are not fighting for conquest or power," they said. "We are fighting for the right to exist as equals. The galaxy may see us as newcomers, but we are not strangers to struggle. We will endure, we will overcome, and we will show them what it means to stand united." The message resonated deeply, igniting a renewed sense of purpose among humanity's ranks. In the days that followed, human forces launched a series of precision strikes against the Council's supply depots and communications hubs. These actions, though small in scale, disrupted the enemy's plans and bought valuable time for further preparations. On the fringes of the Mirren sector, a Council fleet attempted to establish a forward base on a resource-rich moon. They underestimated humanity's resolve. A combined force of human marines and orbital bombardments decimated their efforts, forcing them to retreat. The victory was hard-won, with heavy casualties on both sides, but it sent a clear message. Humanity would not give an inch without a fight. As the conflict escalated, diplomatic channels remained open, though they were increasingly strained. The Council sent envoys demanding humanity's unconditional surrender, but the responses were always the same. Firm refusals paired with calls for mutual respect and genuine dialogue. Behind the scenes, humanity's allies, though few and far between, began to take more active roles. A merchant guild provided critical supplies, while a sympathetic scientist from a neutral species shared key information about Council fleet movements. These small acts of support bolstered humanity's chances, though they remained a far cry from the alliances they truly needed. The Council, frustrated by humanity's resilience, escalated their rhetoric. Propaganda broadcasts depicted humans as violent warmongers, their defiance framed as a threat to galactic stability. But the more they tried to demonize humanity, the more they revealed their own fear. For the first time in centuries, the Council faced an adversary it couldn't intimidate or control. As humanity prepared for the next wave of attacks, their resolve hardened. This wasn't just about the Mirren sector anymore. It was about proving that they belonged in the galaxy, that they were more than the Council's narrow perception of them. In the quiet moments before the next battle, A young pilot wrote a simple note to his family back on Earth. "If this is the end," he wrote, "then let it be said that we stood for something, that we didn't back down, that we showed them who we are." With that, he climbed into his fighter, joining the growing fleet preparing to defend what humanity had built. In every corner of the contested space, similar scenes played out. People from all walks of life, united by a singular purpose, braced themselves for what was to come. The battle began with the faint shimmer of enemy ships dropping out of hyperspace. The Galactic Council had sent its mightiest fleets, a mix of species and technologies so vast it seemed to blot out the stars. Each vessel bore the unmistakable insignia of the Council, a stark reminder of their perceived dominance. But as the ships advanced, they encountered something unexpected: silence. Humanity's forces had vanished from their anticipated positions, leaving the Council fleets to drift cautiously through empty space. This was no retreat. It was the calm before the storm. Suddenly, humanity struck. From behind asteroid fields and planetary shadows, ships emerged with precision and ferocity. Fighter squadrons wove intricate patterns through the enemy ranks, targeting weak points with surgical accuracy. Larger vessels, refitted with experimental weaponry, unleashed devastating volleys that tore through shields and hulls alike. The Council's initial confidence faltered. Their tactics, relying on overwhelming force, were met with unorthodox maneuvers and relentless adaptability. Humanity's fleets were smaller, their ships often less advanced, but their coordination and ingenuity leveled the playing field. Every soldier, pilot, and commander fought as if the fate of their entire species rested on their shoulders. Yet, the Council's numbers began to show. As the battle raged on, humanity's forces were gradually pushed back, their losses mounting. The sheer scale of the Council's armada threatened to overwhelm even the most desperate of defenses. Still, humanity refused to break. On the surface of contested worlds, ground forces dug in, repelling wave after wave of Council troops. In orbit, damaged ships fought on, their crews refusing to abandon their posts. In the midst of the chaos, humanity deployed their last, desperate gamble: resolve. The project, shrouded in secrecy for so long, was revealed to be an experimental energy weapon, capable of disabling entire fleets in one strike. The weapon was mounted on a single flagship, its crew fully aware of the risks involved in activating untested technology. As the Council's fleets closed in, the flagship emerged from its hiding place. It was a battered vessel, scarred from earlier battles, but it carried humanity's hopes within its hull. The crew worked in silence, their focus unwavering as they prepared the weapon. When the moment came, the captain gave the order, and the device was fired. A brilliant pulse of energy radiated outward, sweeping across the battlefield. Council ships caught in its path were left powerless, their systems disabled in an instant. The weapon's effect wasn't perfect. Some vessels managed to shield themselves, but it was enough to turn the tide. Humanity's forces seized the opportunity, launching a counteroffensive that shattered the Council's formation. The battle ended in chaos. The Council fleets, disorganized and demoralized, began to retreat. Humanity, battered but unbroken, held their ground. In the aftermath, the cost of victory became clear. Countless ships had been lost, their crews sacrificing themselves to ensure their species' survival. On the surface of the colonies, the wounded outnumbered the medics, and the scars of war would take years to heal. But humanity had done the impossible. They had faced the full might of the Galactic Council and endured. As the news of the battle spread, the Council's narrative began to unravel. Species across the galaxy questioned the morality of the Council's actions, their faith in its leadership shaken. Humanity's defiance became a symbol of resistance, inspiring others to demand greater equality and fairness within the galactic order. Back on Earth, the human delegation reconvened. The victory was bittersweet, but it had bought them something invaluable: time. Time to rebuild, to strengthen their alliances, and to prepare for the battles yet to come. They knew the Council would not forget this humiliation, and they would return stronger and more determined. The delegation sent a final message to the Council, one that echoed their earlier sentiment. We do not seek war, but we will not bow to tyranny. Let this be a lesson, not just to you, but to all who believe power is the only truth. Humanity is here to stay. In the weeks that followed, humanity worked tirelessly to recover. The colonies in the Mirren sector became a rallying point, their people united by the trials they had faced. Scientists studied the remnants of the Council's fleets, gleaning insights that would fuel future innovations. Soldiers returned to their families, their stories of bravery and sacrifice spreading through the population. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, grappled with the fallout of their failure. Internal dissent grew, with member species questioning the wisdom of provoking humanity. Some began to see the humans not as a threat, but as potential allies, strong, resourceful, and unyielding in their pursuit of freedom. For humanity, the battle was over, but the war was far from won. They had proven their worth, not just to the Council, but to themselves. The galaxy was vast and filled with challenges, but humanity would face them as they always had, together with determination and courage. And as the stars above the Mirren sector burned brighter than ever, one thing became clear. Humanity had not just survived. They had earned their place among the stars.